Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words. Today we are playing a pretty sweet Pox list. This is the list that Jacob Murray took to top 8 the Eternal Weekend North America, and we love Pox on this channel, so I thought it would only be right that we played it. So this list has got some slightly more aggressive options you don't always see in Pox, because we have a couple of Hogaak and a couple of Barrowgoyf here, so we have some good beatdown options. But the aim of the game here is resource denial. The main tool for that is probably Smallpox. This is going to take one of our opponent's cards, one of their creatures, one of their lands, one of their life, which is not that relevant, but, you know, adds up. And then we're going to break the parity of this by having things like Mox Diamond, so maybe we don't have the lands to sacrifice. We're going to have cards that we don't mind discarding, like lands that we can get back with life from the Loam. And we're going to have cards like the beloved Eumidian Hatchery. I adore this card a great deal. Always happy to have this on the channel. This is just a great way to get value out of our Smallpox, because we can put a bunch of counters on this. We Smallpox, and all of a sudden we've got some creatures which can then convoke Hogaak. Our other way of convoking Hogaak is going to be the Orcish Bowmasters, which just gives us both the bodies needed to convoke the Hogaak. We've also got Grist, which can provide enough bodies for Hogaak, as well as being removal and a threat. In terms of removal, in general, we're a little bit light here. So we've got one Fatal Push. We've got the Witherbloom Commands, which can kill some little stuff and blow up some interesting permanents we need to deal with. And then it is really just the Grist and the Smallpox we're relying on in that sentence. We do obviously have Bowmasters, which can ping something small, and Barrowgoyf, which can trade into anything as a Death Touch. But generally speaking, we're going to be leaning quite heavily on Smallpox. We've got Malevolent Rumble to fill up our graveyard and dig for this Hogaak, as well as finding useful permanents. Got a modest little Urza Saga package of Lavaspur Boots, Nihil Spellbomb, Pithing Needle, and of course the Mox Diamonds. And we have Thoughtseize, because it's just one of the best cards in the format right now. Other things worth mentioning, this has got 2 copies of Boseiju and the Ghost Quarter, so we can effectively remove all of our opponent's lands with Ghost Quarter and Life from the Loam. Sideboard wise, if we need some removal, we've got some. We've got Toxic Deluge to sweep out lots of little creatures. We've got Fatal Push to hit big creatures. We've got some Graveyard Hate in the form of Leyline the Void. We've got another Barrowgoyf when we need more threats. We've got Haywire Might as one of our Urza Saga targets. Force of Vigor to blow up some spooky artifacts and enchantments. Chain of Mephistopheles, this does a lot of stuff. We're not going to read out what it does because it's quite hard to pass. But basically, if your opponent's drawing additional cards, it's bad for them while Chains of Mephistopheles is in play. And that's all we need today. Casting Brainstorm underneath a Chains of Mephistopheles sucks for your opponent. And then we have a couple of Void Mirror. This is the hate card that I've been telling people to play for a little while now, because Null Rod simply doesn't work against the Mystic Forge deck anymore, because they have Mystic Forge, which still allows them to play stuff off the top. They've got Urza Saga Beatdown, they've got Glaring Fleshraker, they've got Tezzeret, Khan, and Ugin. So hitting all their colourless spells is way better than just trying to stop their artifacts. Alright, that's the list. Congratulations to Jacob Murray for a top 8 finish. You were everyone's hero in that top 8, I would imagine. It's nice seeing something a little bit out of left field, like the Pox deck, doing quite well. So let's see if we can emulate his success. Like, subscribe, become a YouTube member or a Patreon member. It all helps. But most importantly, enjoy. Alright, this is our first hand. What are we doing with it? The Hogaak might be a little bit tricky to use. We've got some good interaction in Bowmasters. We've got Wasteland, which is obviously good interaction. This is a nice win condition. I think this is fine. Like, we have a lot of different avenues covered, like creature combat, little creatures and extra card draw, spooky basic lands, artifacts, enchantments, like a control deck where we can just ride this to victory. Now, if our opponent just goes underneath us with a combo deck, you know, that's going to happen. But at least the Wasteland and the Boseiju might be able to interact. Also, the Bowmasters might be able to interact as well. We get to lead off with a Verdant Catacombs, so we can fetch a basic in the face of any sort of Wasteland or Blood Moon side effect. This also gives us a Surveil land if there's nothing else going on. Ancient Tomb. What flavor of Ancient Tomb is our opponent? A Chalice of the Void. Alright. So this is probably mono red. It could be a blue Cloud Post deck. They sometimes run the Chalice here. Alright, let's get this Underground Mortuary. Eumidian Hatchery. I do like the Eumidian Hatchery a lot. Is this worth playing, or are we just trying to fill our graveyard for this Hogaak? I think we have to put it in the graveyard for now. I say for now, but just forever, really. Doing here. We play out the Urza Saga. I think we Mox Diamond, and I'm going to pitch. I think pitching the Wasteland might end up being better than pitching the Boseiju here. I think getting in the Barrowgoyf, if we are expecting a mono red deck, they tend to struggle quite a lot against things like Barrowgoyf. Now, they might be able to deal with it right now because it's not very large. If they're just playing like the One Ring, sure. So we have a Bowmaster, which is pretty good against the One Ring. It does mean we're unlikely to get the value out of this Saga, but we can get a Pithing Needle as well soon. No point attacking here because we don't deal damage. So we have Bowmasters in response for their ring being tapped. I think that ends up better than this Urza Saga, but we'll see what our opponent does. Right, this is going to give us a pretty good sized body here. We're pretty close to making a Hogaak as well, because this is going to go in the graveyard. That's going to give us 4. We can convoke using all of these. Cavern of Souls. What is this naming? Human. Oh, okay, so we're more likely to be like the Naya Initiative deck. But we have a lot of bodies, so introducing the Initiative now is pretty sketchy for our opponent. They put an artifact in the graveyard for us, which is also nice. Okay, so this is a Fury. Let's see where they put these damages. So these are both going to die. Is there a way that we can get anything into the graveyard right now? We can put a land in, but there's already lands in the graveyard. We can't put an artifact in that will make a difference here. This creature is already going, so we're just going to lose both of these. And they're going to be left with a Fury. Not ideal, but this One Ring is kind of burning a hole in our opponent's pocket. Token. What are we tutoring for here? I'm trying to find a way that we can get out from underneath Fury. Like, the best way of doing that would be a Hogaak, but we don't really have a good route to Hogaak right now. If we get an artifact, this makes this a 3-3. If we put the boots on it, makes it a 4-3. That's not really good enough, is it? We can redraw, or we can Pithing Needle and shut down the One Ring. I think we just shut down the One Ring here. Like, there's no Bowmaster holding it, but we needed to make sure that we thought that through just in case something else occurred to us. We don't have another Surveyor land here. I'm not going to attack into their Double Striker, but they probably need to hold back on blocks here. That Fury was pretty good, to be fair to our opponent there. A Chrome Mox. We can blow this up in response, so they don't get anything, but they can just go get basic, which will probably cover them for this anyway. What is this? Oh, this is Spider Punk. Right, you take 2 off of your Ancient Tomb. Are you introducing the Initiative here? They are introducing the Initiative. I wouldn't mind having a Dried Arbor out there. We don't have one, but if we had one, we could go and get it with this Verdant Catacombs and deploy a Hogaak. Right, so going into the Undercity. I don't think they get to attack with a Fury here, because we can put them dead to the One Ring. Okay, I don't think we're blowing anything up here. Ghost Quarter. We have some options. We could Ghost Quarter away this mountain, and then Boseiju away that Chrome Mox, and maybe that cuts them off of mana. I don't think it does, though. I think we're just going to hold here. Like, we can attack with both creatures. They have to trade this off, and then this kills this. So if we attack here, it kills the Caves of Chaos Adventurer, but we lose one of our guys. Is that really worth doing? If they attack us, they attack with both creatures. We can double block the Caves of Chaos Adventurer, and then it's probably going to be larger next turn. They put 2 counters on this. That's a lot of damage. I think we're just going to hold back and see if this One Ring can burn our opponent down. Yeah, maybe this deck would kind of be interested in Dried Arbor, because it helps convoke the Hogaak. It also helps with the Grist, because it just gives you a land that can turn into a creature to sacrifice. Obviously, there are some significant drawbacks to playing something like a Dried Arbor. That's interesting. Okay, so the Ancient Tombs are off. What have they got here? They went to the Lost Well here. Alright, so this is going to throw the One Ring, so that's a bit of a problem for us. Are they going to throw it at us or one of our creatures? If they throw it at one of our creatures, they're guaranteed to connect. Yep. So now we need to rustle up 2 damage from somewhere. Life from the Loam. That's not a bad way of rustling up damage, is it? Because we can go Wasteland, Hatchery, Saga. So we could play the Hatchery and start this ticking. It's going to take 2 turns to get the requisite tokens that we need out of this. We could play this and get a token to then get the initiative back off of our opponent. We could also play this, blow it up, play a Hogaak. That's really strong. But this pings for 7, which is a lot. So this is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, because we're going to have to tap this guy to do it. This is tough. I don't think we have time to do Urza Saga stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I think we play out this Hatchery. Black. We Ghost Quarter our own land here. Might as well get a Forest. So we have a choice with what we do with this Hogaak. What do we want to pay 1 life? Is that 1 life going to be relevant here? Considering they have different levels of damage they can deal us with throwing things. So obviously these aren't throwing us odd numbers, but this can throw us an odd number. So I think we actually want to just Hogaak here. So we get rid of things we definitely can't get back later. We don't really need another Verdant Cat because we've got one if we do need it later. Are we just getting the Hatchery back later or the Loam? It's probably just keeping the Loam in there, isn't it? Okay, so now we have the biggest creature in play. We have the ability to Boseiju something if we think that's necessary. I could Boseiju this Mox, but I believe our opponent's going to have a red mana source in here. This is looking like a mono-red stompy deck more than like Nire Initiative, but maybe we'll find out in a second. Because this is a human, so a lot of this stuff could just slot in. Another broadside. That's a little sketchy for us. I haven't done the maths here. We're going to have to in a second, aren't we? So they turn everything sideways here. What are they getting off the Caves Adventurer? The One Ring. Not the most useful. So this is 12. Sorry, this is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we've got the biggest one. So we take 6 less. So we go to 9. So we are 9 then. Let's do the math. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 plus 7 is 16. So they have exactly lethal if they do this correctly. Well, that sucks. Yep, so throw this at our face. That puts us to 9. And then this is exactly lethal. Okay. I thought we had that one for a while, but it just kind of fell away when they had that really nice Fury turn. So what looks good here? I like creature removal and ways of blowing up some of their spooky permanents. I love Barrowgoyf here. Toxic Deluge is like not great, but is playable. The Haywire Might has some text. Fatal Pushes for Broadside is good, but we have to make sure that we get access to Revolt when we're doing this. We don't need an Nihil Spellbomb in this matchup. Do we have any lands that we can get rid of? Ghost Quarter fetching ourselves a basic is nice in a Blood Moon matchup, so I think we keep that. This is an answer for Chalice. That could be quite... Chalice isn't that good against us. Maybe we just don't want these Thoughtseizes. And we just want to play to the board rather than trying to take stuff out of our opponent's hand. So this is 61 cards, so we need one cut to fix this one up. Are we trimming a Mox Diamond? I think I can trim a Mox Diamond. We don't really want to draw more of them. Our opponent's going to be boarding in Artifact Hate most likely. They've seen Urza Sagas, they've seen Mox Diamonds. So this is a really weird hand because this is one of the best cards in the matchup. We don't have anything else going on. We can Surveil though. I'm going to keep this purely on the back of how good Barrowgoyf is in the mono-red matchups. Like this card just solos mono-red matchups quite often. Now they are a slightly more aggressive bent with the Caves of Chaos Adventurer. So maybe this isn't the way to go. We need to get something a little bit more interactive earlier on. But we can play this out. We can get Surveil Land or our basic forest in the face of a Blood Moon effect. And then we can kind of just go from there. Blood Moon is something that I wouldn't be surprised to see in our opponent's deck because we are a Life from the Loam list. So we're going to have a bunch of techie lands and they're going to want to shut them down. Alright, here is our Verdant Catacombs. So Barrowgoyf is going to be a 1-2 just from what we're doing. Hopefully our opponent will... I guess we don't want our opponent to put too many things in the graveyard because that means they're doing a lot with their turn. And I don't like them doing a lot with their turn. City of Traitors into what? A Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Sure, that's pretty good. Let's get Surveil Land going. Eumidian Hatchery. Sure. So we have two options here. We can Wasteland our opponent to hurt their mana production for next turn. I don't think that's the way though. I think the way is Eumidian Hatchery. Try and just get this Barrowgoyf in and run away with the game. Because hopefully they're going to put some cards into their graveyard right now and we're going to be able to just jam this Barrowgoyf in their grill. But this is a matchup where our relatively small amount of removal can come back to bite us, I think. We don't necessarily have the time to sort of play around stuff because they're just going to be throwing haymakers. So creature, sorcery, land. So we've got 3-4 Barrowgoyfs. And if they play a Blood Moon effect, we are fine with that because we have this swamp. Broadside Bombardiers. Yep, it's pretty darn good. We can make some Eumidian Hatchery tokens at some point. We need to decide if paying life right now is correct. We just need to not pump some counters on this. Let's see if they throw anything at us. And then we can make a choice. If they're not throwing stuff at us, I'm going to pay a life here. So I think this is just swamp here. Is it swamp or is it the wasteland or is it the ghost quarter? If we play the ghost quarter, then it's just on board for our hatchery next turn. Okay, here is Barrowgoyf. It's sizable. But there is the Fable of the Mirror Breaker being flipped at some point, which is going to be a bit of a scary one for us. If we can find a Force of Vigor, we can hardcast it though. But this combo should run away with the game. And we don't have the way of breaking this up because we're quite a low removal deck. Right, if you sacrifice our Lotus Pearl, our creature becomes a 4/5. White mana. It's another Broadside Bombardiers. Yikes. Yeah, this feels rough for us. So we're getting attacked for a bunch here. So they might throw one of the Broadside Bombardiers at our Barrowgoyf after they've dealt us damage. We can't block here because of Menace. Oh yeah, they can just throw them both to the face rank because this is 5 and then this is another 5. Yeah, they just turn 3'd us. That felt pretty brutal. Yikes. Let's go to round 2. The second black is going to be a little hard to come by with this hand. Place to mulligan this. Like, Pithing Needle can shut down a bunch of things. Like, it's like backside of Tamiyo. It can deal with a bunch of Mystic Forge nonsense, sneak attacks. There's various things that this can hit. If you find a black source, this hand is really good. I'm going to believe in the deck to deliver a black source. We're on the draw as well. We've got Eumidian Hatchery to just keep cranking up, and then when eventually we do crack a Smallpox, it's going to be brutal. A Mox, we're just going to get bodied by mono red again. Fail the Mirror Breaker. Looks to be the case. We did not have a great time into it in round 1. There is an Urza Saga. We don't have a Wasteland. We do have a Boseiju, but we can't fire it off just yet. We could shut down our opponent's Urza Saga, though. Chalice of the Void. Guess what we can't do anymore? Alright. So they're on a... We hope that Urza Saga works. So if a Wasteland comes off the top of our deck, we're going to feel pretty good. That's not a Wasteland, is it? Alright, we're just going to play the Hatchery and start ticking this up. We could have played a Saga. If our opponent's going to play a Blood Moon, it's going to lock our Saga out from doing Saga things anyway. Because it's going to be like half a turn cycle behind our opponents. Okay, our opponent has one source of red mana. Kind of interested in maybe dealing with that one. Thoughtseize really isn't the one here. So I think is play this. So we can either unlock some 1-drops or we can try and take them off of red. I think we're going to try and draw a card and we're going to destroy their Mox here. We could have put a counter on Eumidian Hatchery last turn, but I'm a little bit worried about our life total. Maybe we're supposed to just lean into it and say whatever though. Take this Ghost Quarter. This is going to give us access to Eumidian Hatchery tokens when the time comes. Alright, so this is going to be a 4/4 that's going to... Sorry, it's going to be a 3/3 and then it's going to be a 4/4, then it's going to be a 5/5. So it's going to be a little bit large. Now, Smallpox doesn't care about the size of creatures. This will be able to nail a thing that they do. And they do have this Ancient Tomb punching away at them, so they're going to be losing life a little bit. So when we can stabilize, their life total is not necessarily going to be the highest. We've got another Mox Diamond. Sorry, Chrome Mox. So our opponent is pitching a lot of cards. There's a Broadside. They got another Broadside. Magus of the Moon. It's good. It's good, isn't it? And then we're going to take 5 in the face. Yikes. I don't know how we're supposed to win. This matchup feels horrible. Orcish Bowmasters we can't cast. We can't use this to get basic because it's already locked out from us. We can Boseiju something. We can only Boseiju our opponent's things. Which doesn't feel the best. Pretty awkward. At least this game's not going to last long because our opponent hits us next turn and then what? Then we die. Right, they're not going to risk anything in combat here. I think that makes sense. Yep. Just Stone Cold Dead on turn 4. Alright. These mono red matchups do not feel fun to me. Okay, so... Hey, why am I? think we want pushes. Barrowgoyf. Deluges, maybe. We don't need Nihil Spellbomb. That can get out of here. Cut one of these. Like, the Bowmasters aren't amazing here. Don't really want Thoughtseizers, I don't think. I like the Malevolent Rumble quite a lot. Hogaak is one of our trump cards in the matchup. I don't think we can board out Bowmasters because of how key it is to get Hogaak, and when Hogaak is good, it's like a real big deal for us. So this time we're trying to fit in the Toxic Deluge, which we didn't have last time. Maybe it's Malevolent Rumble. This obviously helps fuel the Hogaak, but do we have the time to be doing that? Maybe... I don't think we board out Smallpox in our Smallpox decks. That doesn't sound right to me. We could board out a Bayou. That seems a kind of wild day. We can go down to 2 Witherbloom Command, but this is kind of a way that we can win games. Okay, I'm going to get rid of one of the Rumbles. Just have like a bunch of removal so that we can actually deal with Magus of the Moon and Bombardiers. This hand can get back in our deck, and we'll try again. Pretty cold to the old Blood Moon. But we have one of the best cards in the matchup. We have some removal, which is relatively sparse in our deck. I Then we keep this, and we probably bin off the Bowmasters because it's just not very good in this matchup. It's something that our deck kind of needs to operate though. Okay, play this Eumidian Hatchery, and then we pass it over. So we can try and dig for a land next turn with the Witherbloom. This will also grow our Barrowgoyf because we'll be putting cards in our yard. Hopefully they play something that's worth blowing up with the Witherbloom. We can't blow this up because this states non-land, non-creature. It's not like some of the effects that can hit, like enchantment and artifact and stuff like March of Otherworldly Light. I think because we're on the play, I'm going to put a counter on our hatchery. It feels like we're going to win by large margins or small margins and very little in between. Okay, the Mox Diamond is great here. Are we trying to keep our Barrowgoyf going? Alright, I think we're going to wasteland our opponent. And then we're going to Mox Diamond. We're going to pitch this. And then we're going to Witherbloom Command. We're going to drain life. And mill and get this wasteland back. I want to Verdant Catacombs, or do I want this wasteland? I think it's just the wasteland, isn't it? So we can cut our opponent's mana off. That's very much keying into what our game plan is. And we now made a 4/5 Barrowgoyf. So we can probably just stick this. We know it doesn't die to Fury, so it's going to be very hard to remove. And now we've got 2 permanents in play. Our opponent's got none, so we're going to be on the front foot here and be able to slam this Barrowgoyf down before our opponent can really react to it and then just ride this to victory. Oh, they want me to hit their Urza Saga, do they? So the Mox Diamond means we're not that scared about Blood Moon anymore. So we at least have a coloured source here. Fiery Confluence. Interesting. Blood Moon. Alright, Eumidian Hatchery. You are unfortunately not going to do the work for us. However, we have a Lurgoyf that's more than willing to do the work. We're not going to have a great time if they remove our Mox Diamond, but we might have already done enough just by putting a Barrowgoyf into play. It's very hard to exaggerate quite how good this is in the matchup. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Sure. We can blow up the guy here if we want to. And just start getting some card advantage going. Nothing going on over there. Let's see what we draw and see if it makes any difference to us. Yeah, I think we're just going to tag this guy now. It's going to be very hard for us to get a Revolt anyway. So we may as well make sure that we get to connect here and get the card advantage off the Barrowgoyf. So this could enable us to have a Hogaak next turn. This is also giving us 5 damage and 5 life gain. Yes, let's mill some cards. No creatures. Alright. We only have mountains available, but 5/6 guy into our Hellbent opponent. Now they can cycle one of the cards via a Fable, but that's not very impressive. Oh, they didn't shuffle. Oh, sorry, they didn't cycle the card. Barrowgoyf. Barrowgoyf always beats Barrowgoyf. They have the same stats, but our guy has Death Touch and Lifelink. Multiple Barrowgoyfs do beat Barrowgoyf, but that's a different problem. Fatal Push. We can hold this up, and there might be a situation where it becomes relevant. Tap 5. Do you want to lose your Barrowgoyf or not? I don't think they should. Yeah, it's pretty awkward to let us just get this potential card, but Hogaak the Arisen. Sure. I'll put it in my hand. You can cast it from your hand or your graveyard. It doesn't matter where it is. It says you may cast it from your graveyard. You can still cast it from your hand. The only thing you can't do is spend mana on it. So if we lose our Barrowgoyf for any reason, they lose their Barrowgoyf due to this Fatal Push. Now, this reflection is going to be a little bit spooky. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Okay. So we have a choice here. How likely are we to find Revolt? Very unlikely. We're very unlikely to also find another mana source. So if we're going to cast a spell next turn, I think we just need to take out the thing we can take now and hopefully force this Reflection of Kiki-Jiki into blocking. I don't think they will block. Yeah, this is just a mountain, so it doesn't really do the work for us. If they don't block, though, we might find a creature, which could get this Hogaak into play. It's about time we found one of these Bowmasters. We are milling a lot of cards. Wire Might. Okay. Now we need to do some thinking, because there's some options available to us, because we can get rid of the Blood Moon. So this is non-creature artifact enchantment, so we can't blow up the Reflection of Kiki-Jiki. So what is the plan here? So if we deploy the Haywire Might and blow the Haywire Might up, we can get black and Smallpox. They lose one of their guys. We get some Eumidian Hatchery tokens. They probably keep the Barrowgoyf. Does that work out for us? I think that works out for us. Because we also get the Hogaak into play. So, Haywire Might first. We will get rid of this Blood Moon. This will unlock their Urza Saga, but that's fine. So this goes and gets us Bayou, I guess, because that's all we can get here. Smallpox here. We can discard this Hogaak, which is why we put it into our hand earlier rather than just leaving it in the graveyard. So I'll discard this Hogaak. Blow up this Hatchery. The Hatchery will convoke the Hogaak, and then I think we've done enough. Our opponent's also on 1, but we break up this combo. Alright, they decided to keep the Reflection. That's an interesting choice. Let's cast this. So black, black on the convoke here. And we just get rid of stuff that we don't care about too much. And we got the big boy. So we have 3 lethal insects and we have a Hogaak. I think this game should be in the bag. They do get to cycle whatever they've drawn, but I'm not really sure what they can draw here to beat an 8/8 Trampler and 3 Flyers. Alright, we got there. That felt a bit better than just getting clocked by Broadside Bombardiers every turn. So that's something. Yeah, I guess we just submit again. That was also the difference of having removal. Just being able to tag stuff and make sure that we can keep connecting with the Barrowgoyf. We have mana to play underneath the Blood Moon. We have removal spells at the wazoo. I will keep this. I wouldn't mind having a Hatchery here. So this is going to shut down the Hatchery. Because Hatchery has to go into the graveyard. If it goes to exile, this won't trigger. Volcanic Fissure. Okay, let's see what we're about. An Urza Saga. Alright, I think we're just going to play the Wasteland game here. If we can freeze our opponent out for a little bit, that's pretty good. Then we can just start Urza Sagaing. Play this one out. I'm a little reluctant to play out this Mox Diamond right now, but I do like having access to Fatal Push in our opponent's turn. So I will be playing this out. I think we're just going to bin off a Catacombs here. So we've got another coloured source in hand in the form of this Verdant Catacombs. And if they blow up our Mox Diamond, that is obviously not ideal for us. But I think we just have to play with what we have here. Did our Wasteland plan work? Are you without a second land drop? Because we get to start cranking out the Saga construct soon. I think this gets us a basic swamp as well. Okay, this is a Chrome Mox. So this is going to be 2, possibly 3 mana this turn. Alright, there is an Urza Saga. Our Saga starts doing stuff first. Going to play a Blade Reforged. This is not a thing we really get to deal with, unfortunately. Now, we could Smallpox here. Wouldn't mind drawing another Mox Diamond. That's certainly been an interesting way to Smallpox. Force of Vigor. Curious. So we can take out both of these mana sources. But we don't have, no, we don't have a green card, do we? Are we just cranking out the constructs? Because this is kind of scary. If we Smallpox, we take this out, we take out one of their 2 lands. They might not be able to use their Urza Saga at all. What is that going to do to us, though? We're going to lose either the Saga or the Catacombs. We crank out a construct here, it's going to be 2. They're going to get another card off the Lelia. Kind of a tough call. I guess the other option is to just play the Verdant Catacombs, crack it, Fatal Push this. But then we're going to be behind on the construct race. We just get 1 construct next turn. I guess we can try and Deluge or Force of Vigor them away next turn. Okay. I like this, I guess. I think we go and get the Swamp here. So there's an argument to do this in combat, but then they do get to flip first. So if we're going to do it, then we may as well... I guess we could do it in the beginning of combat so they don't get the trigger, but they also don't get to play another Lelia if they have one. So I think our plan is going to involve blowing up this Saga and the Chrome Mox next turn. So I'd quite like to find a green card. We get to see what we draw before we have to worry about activating our Saga. We can always chump block with the Saga for a bit and then try and Toxic Deluge everything away. So we have options. We can hardcast this Force of Vigor this turn as well, potentially. Another Toxic Deluge. Are we making a construct, or are we just going to get a Chrome Mox, stick this Saga under it, and have this Force of Vigor to blow up 2 of their things? Alright. I think we're going to go for blowing up our opponent's permanents. Yep, so they're activating their construct now so that we don't Pithing Needle it. So then we go and get, I think it is the Mox Diamond here. Pitch this. Blow this and this up. Do we care that much about the construct? Or do we want to hit our opponent's mana? We hit our opponent's mana, we take both of these out. So we shrink the construct to a 1/1 anyway. And maybe that stops them deploying anything else from their hand. Yeah, that seems better to me, I think. We have ways of dealing with creatures in our hand. So let's just blow up some stuff. Now we could take out the Leyline and the Void, but we don't have anything that cares about Leyline and the Void right now. And we're just trying to keep our head above water. And we just believe in the power of Smallpox to make this game miserable for our opponent. Ah, another Saga though. That's a good one. So I'm going to deal us 1 damage here. If we Smallpox, we lose access to Toxic Deluge. That's kind of an awkward one. Immediately punished for not blowing up the not blowing up the Leyline. If we Smallpox here, what does that actually do for us? It takes this out, takes out one of their lands. If they don't have a follow-up land, that's fine. I think we just have to take this. Our opponent's probably going to make a construct in their main phase, so they can force for an extra point of damage. So we could Deluge for 2 next turn and just clean up these 2 guys. And then we can Smallpox to clean up the last guy later on, discarding the second Deluge or the Life from the Loam. Yep, so if we'd have tried to Smallpox here, we would have just set ourselves back and not our opponent, really. Yep, so this is the exact play I mentioned. So I'm going to come in for 2. I'm going to talk to Deluge, sweep both of these. No follow-up from our opponent is okay for us. A Bayou. Do we even cast a Bayou is another question. Pay 2 life here. Sweep the constructs. So if I play the Bayou out, it does help us get towards some higher mana value stuff, but it just gives us a weird situation where we can't double Smallpox but without losing a lot of stuff. So I don't think we need to play this. We're just going to pass for now. Next turn, they make the construct in our end step, so we don't get to clean up with the Smallpox right away. Actually, sorry, they make it now, don't they? And then they pass over. They might hit us this turn with a hasty guy using the Lavaspur Boots. But then hopefully the Smallpox will take a reasonable chunk of our opponent's mana because they're losing this land anyway. Alright, they got the Shadow Spear. Alright, so we're just going to equip the Shadow Spear. And this is going to be the turn that we Smallpox our opponent, I think. This doesn't have haste, so it's whatever. Okay, black and black. I'm going to cast a Smallpox here. I think we get rid of the Life from the Loam, since it's locked out by this Leyline. Now, we could have played this game differently in a way that we turned on Life from the Loam if we drew it, but we have 2 Life from the Loams in our deck. We do have a Hogaak, but Hogaak requires us to do a bunch of other things first as well. I guess we also have the Witherbloom Command, but then that has multiple options, so we don't need to have our graveyard for it to be good. Sure, I will take a guy. Any guy will do. We need to get some pressure going. It's unlikely we kill anything with the Bowmasters, but it's not impossible. An Ancient Tomb. These are going to hurt our opponent. 5 mana. Is this going to be like Caves of Chaos Adventure or something? Barrowgoyf. That is a large friend, isn't it? So we know we're drawing a Bowmasters. That blocks for a turn, but we are in a spot of bother. I think we're just going to pass it over. I don't know if we want to play the land out yet or not, due to various things in our deck, like Smallpox. Carefully balancing our in-play and hand zone is kind of important. Oh, they didn't equip it. That's kind of scary, actually. Why didn't they equip it? It's what we needed to happen to get anywhere. Now we can just chump block this. Right, putting our opponent for 1. We'll just chump block here, because this doesn't have trample, because they didn't equip it. That probably means they have a follow-up, though. If it's just a Barrowgoyf, then... yeah. Exile Simian Spirit Guide. Do you really need to exile Simian Spirit Guide? You got this Ancient Tomb. If you're winning the game right now. Fiery Confluence. Ah, that's what I need to do. Yeah. We are dead. Okay, so we just lost 2 rounds to Mono Red Stompy. Interesting. I wonder if that is Mono Red Stompy actually being a bad matchup, or if things just haven't broken for us, because it did feel pretty difficult. Alright, let's go to round 3. Have you got magic cards you don't want taking up space in your home, or do you just need some extra spending money? Well, my lovely sponsors, 3for1 Trading, are buying all collections, big and small. They are one of Europe's biggest traders and have a transparent process to sell them cards and make sure you're getting a good deal. Click the link in the description of this video to get an offer on your cards today. Alrighty, what does this hand do? Also, between these two rounds, I did check up on MTG decks what the win rate of Smallpox into Mono Red Prism was, and it said 33%, so I can believe that. We have removal, we have a Saga plan, I think this is fine. We have potentially 4 pieces of doing stuff in this hand, and we also have like half a Ponder built into our Surveil land. That's a reasonable amount of stuff, and our deck can be kind of hungry for mana at times because we want to be able to Smallpox and still be able to play the game. So we'll lead off on a Verdant Catacombs. That way, if they do play like a Eternal Blood Moon, we can go and get a Forest straight away and just have basics to play on. It does mean that if we get Surveil Land with this, we're not getting the Forest with our Bloodstained Mire. Hopefully, we're not just going to pair into Mono Red Prism 3 rounds in a row. Alright, it doesn't look like Mono Red. Hallelujah. We are okay. If they play a Tamiyo, we can bop it with a Fatal Push. It's just a Ponder. Okay. So next time we probably just play out the Saga, hold up Fatal Push and Orcish Bowmasters. Do we need to Surveil Land here, or can we save this as a Revolt Enabler for our Fatal Push? We already have this as a Revolt Enabler. Is our opponent going to play something we can't Fatal Push next turn? That would be unlikely. So I think we're just going to take the value from the Surveil Land here. They're not going to be wastelanding our Surveil Land when we're putting an Urza Saga into play. Malevolent Rumble. I do like this card quite a bit. So there are 2 options facing us. We can either play the Orcish Bowmasters. We can do it preemptively, which is great unless our opponent has their own Bowmasters, but a lot of these decks don't. If it's Blue-Black Tempo, it might do, but if it's Reanimator, which is the most common Blue-Black deck, then it doesn't have main deck ones, and this can just shut off further cantrips. Or we can play the Malevolent Rumble and try and dig for our own game plan. I think I'm going to go for the proactive Orcish Bowmaster here, to shut off more cantrips. This is bad against the Blue-Black Tempo deck, but it's fine against everything else. Okay, it was worth a daze to our opponent, so that sets them back a little bit. So we're not getting Entomb Reanimated on in this next turn cycle, which is always good to know. There is an Underground Sea. There is a Tamiyo. So this is kind of annoying because I would like to kill their Tamiyo. Okay, we found something else to do, that's fine. So I think the most important thing to resolve is this Fatal Push. Force of Negation. Okay. Now very much in on that Tamiyo. I think we're going to do a preemptive Bowmaster. So if it's their turn, we can sometimes trick them with this Bowmaster. Alright, I just had another daze. So in their hand they've got 2 lands. Is the last card in their hand a Brainstorm? Because we have a Pithing Needle coming next turn, so we can shut down the backside of a Tamiyo. But honestly, the front side of a Tamiyo is pretty annoying for a Pox deck, because we're trying to reduce the resources in the game, and this is just all the resources you could possibly imagine. Right, there's the island we knew about. See what we draw and see what we're doing with this Saga. Alright, we're going to make a friend. This is kind of annoying, because if we get the Pithing Needle and put it on the backside of Tamiyo, they just sit there with the front side of Tamiyo. And that's a problem too. But I guess it's just what we have to do. It's this Tamiyo card. It's one of the best things you can do. What is it called? So this is Inquisitive Student. Seasoned Scholar, I think, is the backside. It is Seasoned Scholar. Good. Then we can play this one out. We can go and fetch a Bayou here. And then we can insulate ourselves against any graveyard shenanigans our opponent may have. Also gives us a slightly bigger body. And then we just have to be able to beat our opponent spending their turn and their mana to get cards out of their clues. It's fine when they've only got 2 mana. If they don't have free spells, that is. Because then they're just, you know, spending the clues on a Tamiyo. We've also invalidated Brainstorm here as a draw our opponent wants to cast. Which isn't bad, because that card is obviously very good. Let's go for a Malevolent Rumble. It's awkward casting like this because we can't cast a Smallpox. Alright, they're cracking a clue. But I think we would rather see what land we're drawing. Oh, these are good lands. I would kind of just want this Grist. I think is the best thing we have going here. Because if they don't have a daze, we just cast it here. I think it's worth trying to send this into a daze. Alright, they didn't have it. So we can attack our opponent. Then we can clean out this Tamiyo if we want. This does expose it to an Orcish Bowmasters is the problem. Do we want to expose it to an Orcish Bowmasters or not? We would lose our 3/3, which is the thing that can press through Tamiyo. I think we're just going to plus. Oh, a Hogaak. I'll have that next turn. So by leaving this with a lot of loyalty, it means if our opponent plays a Murktide Regent, we can defeat it with the Grist. Whereas we could use the Nihil Spellbomb to stop that happening, but then if we get Entomb Reanimated on, that sucks. So this kind of has to hold back the tide of Entomb Reanimate. Because as long as Entomb is legal, blue-black Reanimator is probably going to be the best thing in Legacy. We kind of just have to suck it up. Right, another land. So now they can take extra cards whilst also casting spells, which is not great for us. Witherbloom Command. Right, let's make a friend here. Let's cast this Hogaak, shall we? Get rid of Bowmasters, I suppose. And then some lands that we're not interested in. So I could use this to blow up their clue and get a card for us. I don't hate that. So get a card, blow up the clue. Because they can't pop it right now. What land are we getting back though? I'm not really sure this is a Wasteland sort of game. Maybe it's just a Saga and we just keep cranking with the win condition. Alright, so the matchup into these sort of blue-black decks with the Pox does feel pretty good. Certainly better than the mono-red matchup. Right, so they're getting a Surveil land. If we see a second Surveil land, that gives us the information that our opponent is playing Reanimator. At the moment, we are, what, 6 turns into this game? We don't know what deck our opponent's playing. Which kind of demonstrates one of the other problems with this deck being in the format. Because you can't make an educated guess on what you're supposed to do. Alright, Animate Dead on the Barrowgoyf. We have an answer to this in Boseiju without having to go shields down on other reanimation stuff. I think that's fine. It's also uncounterable, so we don't have to worry very much. Okay, so they confirm their Reanimator in the same turn by playing Animate Dead and the Undersea Sewers, number 2. We're coming in with a Tamiyo. I think we probably are, right? No, a little bit scared. Oh, sorry, this only costs 1 because we have a legend, don't we? In fact, this doesn't count. It has to be a legendary creature, right? Yeah. All right, our opponent scooped that one up. So, blue-black Reanimator. If we have the Leylines, we just don't have to worry about that thing as much. And that seems fine. Chains looks good against what our opponent's bringing to the table. I like these sorts of things. I like a lot of our sideboard here, which is awkward because we have to make choices. So, what do we not need in a matchup like this? How useful is Witherbloom Command? What is it blowing up? The backside of Tamiyo. That makes it useful. Okay. We need Lavaspur Boots so we can pressure a Tamiyo with haste. We need the Nihil Spellbomb because they're a graveyard deck. We need Pithing Needle for the backside of Tamiyo. Do we take out Barrowgoyf so our opponent can't reanimate our Barrowgoyfs? Problem is we have this Hogaak, which is the best thing to reanimate. I don't really want them doing that. How are we supposed to sideboard here? This feels really tough to work out the correct lines. Are there any lands that we can get rid of? Like this isn't... It's not really great to Wasteland our opponent, but we set up a Loam block. That is pretty good. I don't know how we're supposed to fit any of these cards in the deck. Does that mean we're just supposed to roll with it as it is? Maybe we just take the chains because everyone loves chains and Mephistopheles. Grist can kill a big reanimated monster. Fatal Push is good for our opponent's pivot plan. Maybe it's one of the Rumbles goes. Like, it felt pretty good in the main deck. Let's just try it like this. We don't want to overboard. I just don't know how we're supposed to fit the Leylines in there. Because most of these decks tend to ease off on the combo in the second game. Especially when they suspect something like a Leyline, which is something you would very much expect to have a Pox deck. I like the Smallpox. This finds us Graveyard Hate. It's kind of slow though, but we're not going to get Wasteland out of the game. We do have ways of playing through this. Like Urza Saga is so good if they're going into like a tempo plan. I think we keep it on the assumption that our opponent's probably going to be going on a tempo plan, but they're going to have some amount of graveyard in their deck. But we can kind of circumvent that quite nicely. Alright, so we're going to play this Bloodstained Mire, because these can get both of our basics, and we're almost certainly getting the... Okay. Change of plan. We'll get the Swamp. We'll play the Spellbomb. Do you have interaction for the Spellbomb? They have a Force of Will they're putting on the Spellbomb. That's a little spooky. Are we getting reanimated on next turn? Like, are we supposed to just board out spells and just have the 4 ley lines? Is that really what we're supposed to do here? A Tamiyo. Okay. Brainstorm can kind of mess us up a little bit here. But I think we're supposed to go for it. Okay. Force of Will pitching Atraxa. Force of Will pitching Brainstorm is what we've gone through so far. We can start cranking some as a Saga constructs, and they will have haste for all the good that's going to do us, because they're only going to have 2 artifacts. So we're going to be able to put 1 damage on a Tamiyo that flips. But I think if they had a Brainstorm, they would have just fired it off them. We don't have to worry about Atraxa. We only have to worry about the Archon of Cruelty. And our opponent has spent pretty much their entire hand. Now, they do have this card that just means that they get to have more cards in hand when they want them. And we're not really applying pressure, so they're just going to have time to keep cracking these clues. Right, just cracking immediately. Smallpox, you say. I will cast a Smallpox. Okay, what are we going to pitch here? It's probably the Lavaspur Boots. I don't think we need the Lavaspur Boots here. And then I'm going to get rid of a Swamp. And I'm going to play out one of our Sagas. So we're in a pretty commanding position right now. Our opponents spend a lot of their resources. They don't have much left. We're going to start cranking out the boys. Not a Wasteland, so that's excellent news for us. We don't have a great way of stopping their graveyard plan with our current setup. But they only have an Archon of Cruelty there. So we can probably outmuscle the Archon of Cruelty if we get a little creative. Right, we're going to crack this now so our opponent doesn't have a window where they can play a Wasteland and then punish us if our fetch land is in play. Because we can crack the fetch and they can just Wasteland our Saga, so we never get to activate it. Just by making sure that we have them in play works now. They don't have another Undercity Sewers, so we're looking at something like an Orcish Bowmasters. If I was our opponent, I wouldn't cast an Orcish Bowmaster on this board. I would wait until the Saga gets... till I make a creature, because then they can just kill it when it's a 1-1. Right, this is an Intune. This doesn't mean they have the answer. It just means that they are firing it off now, because that's what they have in hand. Let's see. There is the Archon of Cruelty. Do you have it, though? A Brainstorm. That's a lot of looks at a Reanimate. But if we can start putting some damage in our opponent, Reanimate's going to become a worse and worse proposition. And they've scooped it up. Okay, it was a little bit dicey for a minute there, but it worked out. On to round number 4. We are on the board. This Mox Diamond is kind of awkward, but we're on the draw. We have a Thoughtseize. I'm going to keep this one. So we can Thoughtseize and then maybe get a Life from Loam going next turn. It could be a little bit sketchy, though, if we don't find the right things. Now, we could also just go super ham here and just Smallpox on 1 and just say, do you want to roll around in the dirt with this opponent? I don't think that's the way to play this one. The other option is to Orcish Bowmasters, get pressure going early, but I think the correct play is just the Thoughtseize. You don't see that many Tropical Islands. It could be like a Nadu-based deck or Eumidian Hatchery. Still my beating heart. So we could do a Life from the Loam turn, but again, I think we just need to Thoughtseize our opponent, so I'm just going to Eumidian Hatchery and Thoughtseize. It means we can reliably resolve the Smallpox or the Orcish Bowmasters. We also know which one of them is the better one to play. Alright, they're dazing. We could avoid this by playing out the Mox Diamond, but I'm a little bit hesitant to play out the Mox Diamond. I didn't want to play out into a daze. Maybe we should have done just so we could play around the daze. Another Mox Diamond. Let's play a Mox Diamond. I think we're going to Life from Loam, getting back this land. We're about to get Force of Negation here. Right, a Brainstorm. Huh. Our opponent did not want to play against that. Why were they so worried about that? I don't know. I don't know what our opponent's doing. Why would they be so terrified of Loam? We didn't have access to a Wasteland. Is their matchup just really horrible? I don't know. Right, let's have a Chains of Mephistopheles. I guess we'll take out a Fatal Push for now. We don't want to tinker around too much. We don't know what we're playing into, but just having a Chains when we've seen Ponder seems like a reasonable thing to do. This can also be good if they're playing Omnitail and we just stick the Chains, and then they can't really do a lot of their cantrips even underneath an Omniscience. If they're slow, maybe we want this extra Barrowgoyf, but we don't know enough yet, so we're just going to hold here. They might have Uro, so we're keeping the Nihil Spellbomb. Okay. Thoughtseize, Orcish Bowmasters, all the hits. So maybe we are supposed to play out the Mox Diamond this time around. Underground Sea. Alright, they've got a Tamiyo. Not my best friend. Hatchery, we want to get this crank in. Mox Diamond. I will pitch a Saga here. We have multiple of them. I don't think we need to Bowmaster here. I think it's more important to Thoughtseize around a daze. Brainstorm, Nihil Spellbomb. Well, that is a bit of a doozy for us, isn't it? I think we take the Spellbomb. We don't want to get shot off of Loam, but yeah. If we'd have just played the Bowmasters, that could have been pretty good for us. Now, our opponent could just wait and Brainstorm with different timings so they get access to active player, non-active player in a profitable fashion. Because if they Brainstorm on our turn, our ability goes on the stack to shoot them, and then the flip ability goes on top of that. Alright, so they've got turn 2 Planeswalker that threatens to just win the game. So we get Urza Saga into Bowmasters here. And maybe we're in a situation where we have to try and gain them a little bit with this Brainstorm. Ghost Quarter. So making these little hatchery tokens does nothing into Tamiyo because Tamiyo is so big. And like the -1 is just going to shut off all of our guys. So Bowmaster can't even pressure here. So we need to try and nab this Brainstorm. Because otherwise we're just not going to have enough damage to deal with the Tamiyo. Right, they're going to the roof with the Tamiyo. Because if we play the Bowmaster out proactive there, they don't have to do anything because the Bowmaster can't pressure the Tamiyo. Right, they're getting their mana down. So we're looking at full bug spread. So is this like bug beans perhaps? An Uro. Okay, this gives us a window to Bowmasters and get a little bit of damage on this Tamiyo and give us a 2/2, which can actually deal 1 damage to the Tamiyo. Hopefully strands this Brainstorm in our opponent's hand as well. And then we can start cranking with constructs and maybe we can keep the Tamiyo down long enough. Alright, you had Force of Will. Well, this game has been brought to you by the letter Tamiyo. My least favourite letter in the Magic the Gathering alphabet. I don't know if that's true. I don't particularly like Tamiyo. I think the design is horrible on it, and it is obviously dominating the format in a pretty unpleasant fashion. But I think there are worse things in Magic the Gathering. Okay, so this isn't going to pop next turn, but we can start cranking out some boys. I think we hide the Mox Diamond because we don't want our opponent to know how much damage our constructs are going to be doing. So we're just going to play out this Verdant Catacombs. We get a Surveil land, which maybe digs us into a little bit of action. We can make our friend here. And we need to be able to deal with this. Now, this Uro is probably coming back this turn, which does make trying to deal with the Uro somewhat challenging. We don't have Fatal Push anymore. We do have Witherbloom Command we could draw and just kill the Tamiyo, and then I think we might be able to win with what's left over at that point. But we've just got this clock on the game of, okay, if we can't beat this Tamiyo, not a fan of that Wasteland. That really jams us up because we don't get hasty constructs anymore. Yikes. Let's make a construct. It's only a 2/2. Pressuring his Tamiyo is going to be challenging at best. Alright, next time they get to draw half their deck and we lose the game. This is the reason why there's 3 Witherbloom Commands in the deck, because Pox is so bad against things like this. Alright, go away Hogaak. We don't need you right now. We need to deal with this Tamiyo. Chains of Mephistopheles, you say? With 1 card in our opponent's hand. Well, well, well. That's a bit of a banger, isn't it? So we go Urza Saga, Chains of Mephistopheles. So the other option here is to do the Hogaak thing. Maybe we should have Ghost Quartered, but I think once we have the chains, we're actually okay here. Black and 1. Right, chains is in. Let's hope our opponent doesn't read chains. Or they just abrupt decay and get us. So the other option we had there was to play the Ghost Quarter instead of the Urza Saga, Ghost Quarter our own Eumidian Hatchery, and then deploy the Hogaak, which I think is a pretty good option as well. But I think getting the Urza Saga burning so that we can then start cranking constructs, because we don't know how long this Change of Mephistopheles is going to last. If they attack with the Uro, they don't draw a card, they have to discard a card, then draw a card. They've discarded an island. It turns card draws into loot, which is, you know, pretty good. And they can probably put some stuff in the graveyard for Tamiyo to feast upon at some point. Blue and green. Is this going to be a up the beanstalk? That's not great on this board. But still, like, looting is better than nothing, right? We are making their cards worse, but we're not making them unplayable. Now, Brainstorm is unplayable because they have to discard a bunch of cards and then put stuff on top. But I've already gone through 2 Brainstorms. It's the ability for them to just find something and then get it back with Tamiyo is going to be a little bit awkward. I wouldn't be surprised if they just get a Force of Will here. Although if they go Hellbent, then their additional card draw becomes an interesting one. Alright, so this is just going to be a loot. So this is kind of my problem with Chains of Mephistopheles as a card. Because our opponent does get to just still play their game for the most part. It doesn't like properly shut everything down. Okay, so we go black and this. Actually, we don't. I'm just trying to work out if it's best to play this to activate the construct now. I guess we don't need to, right? We can just use this mana to activate the construct, and then we can just Ghost Quarter our own land. I will get Swamp. It makes it easier to cast things like the Hogaak. So we get a bunch of tokens. Right, let's cast this Hogaak. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they do have a Force of Will over there, which I can live with. So we have 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, they're Force of Willing. Okay, so now we play out this Mox Diamond, pitch this, and then we cast the Hogaak again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This also gives us some larger constructs. Alright, I think we've wrestled this game into a pretty winnable position. They really don't want to get Brainstorm back. Alright, they're just plussing to shut down all of our little friends here. That's fine. They can attack with the Euro, and we can block with the Hogaak. I don't think they do that. My opponent agrees. Let's crank out a friend. Let's crank out another friend. I think it's hard to say which one of these we actually want. I think we just get the Lavaspur Boots here. Play the land out. Equip this to the construct. I think we just send them at the opponent here. We'll leave the Hogaak back because this can check the... Oh no, this was... The -1 of this is going to be a little bit awkward, isn't it? But they only get to block one of them here. With the... I guess they can clean 2 of them up and take 6. Yeah, I don't like this attack. We should attack with the Hogaak. But we wipe the Baleful Strix. Yeah, you put it on the bigger one. Yeah, that was a horrible attack, actually. We attack with the Hogaak. It dies. We can bring it back. We should have also equipped the Lavaspur Boots in the second main phase. I just passed through it by accident. Oh, no, opponent. Oh, wait, so they just mill a bunch, don't they? This actually is fine for them because it gives them more options. They can get back this Fatal Push if they want. The Baleful Strix is pretty good here. They milled over a Barrowgoyf, which I didn't attack so poorly last turn. You can attack with a row, gain 3 life, mill a card. Mind a Life of Loam to get back this Urza Saga and start cranking those out again. What are we doing here? We can equip the Lavaspur Boots to the Hogaak. Attack the Hogaak with the Hogaak. That's reasonable. Yep, Tameo going to the sky. I think we just have to not avoid the Tameo. The problem is if they mill enough, they might be able to find something that can blow up our chains. Wasteland. Right, let's equip this to the Hogaak. Let's attack with the Gak. I think we just have to attack the Tameo here. Alright, this has Trample. Right, so let's Wasteland, take out one of our opponent's green sources. Probably going to be part of their getting out of the position they're in plan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, no, we can do this in a way where we get to keep something in the graveyard here, don't we? Do we need to keep another blocker, though, in case our opponent draws a removal spell? Yes, I think we do, actually. So we do have to get rid of these 2 lands. It's annoying. It means Life of Loam isn't a good draw, but if our opponent had like a Brazen Borrower, just bounced this and came in for lethal with the Uro, that would suck a lot for us. So we can nail this Tameo. I think we can win this game. Okay, we can nail the Tameo in a different fashion. So we can destroy target non-creature non-land permanent, and we're going to mill some, I think, here. I guess we get back this land we don't really want. Attack with our big boy. We can chump block the Uro if we want to. The Tameo bubble is still there. We're going to hold this Bloodstained Mire because it could pitch to a Mox Diamond. We don't have a Surveil land to fetch. There's no reason to play it out just yet. I think our opponent probably has a Hedge Maze in their list. We attack him with this Uro. We are. I think I'm happy to chump block here. So we could block here, but our opponent's got 1 card in hand. If they blow this, if we block with multiple things, we can lose a bunch of chump blockers and we've got more damage on the crackback. Grist the Hunger Tide. That's pretty good. Could sack the Uro to kill our Hogaak. They're just making a token though. We have the Grist covered. Because we've got these flying guys. Eumidian Hatchery. I do like Eumidian Hatchery. I'm going to equip my insect token here. And then we attack them with... We attack the Grist with these two. With these three, sorry. That'll kill the Grist, and this can go at their face. I'll play this Eumidian Hatchery. We don't need to crack it. We will equip this to... We don't need to start paying life to our Eumidian Hatchery, but if we get the option to, we can choose it later on. Like if we find a Smallpox or something, we can say, okay, we're going to cash this in for one guy. I think we've just had this game, though. They can go up to 9, but they're dead on the crackback. They need this card that they've drawn to be real good. I guess they could loot it into something else with an Uro attack. But again, that would have to be pretty good to get through this. Chains of Mephistopheles did help us out a bit here. Our opponent wasn't able to generate card advantage. Certainly handy. Right, I get to loot here. A Witherbloom Command. Sure. And they're scooping. Alright. 4 rounds down. We're beating the blue decks. We got crushed by the mono red deck. Let's go to the final round and see if we can get a positive on the board. We have Thoughtseize into Malevolent Rumble. That sounds fun to me. We can also cap it off with a Barrowgoyf who will hopefully be gargantuan by the time we get there. Also, we're on the play, so our Thoughtseize is going to be good. And we get to play Eumidian Hatchery, which is my favourite card in this deck. Actually, no, maybe Wasteland's my favourite card in this deck. But still, I love this card a lot. Okay, Sephard Illusionist, Nardu, Ponder, Tamiyo. How do we go about dealing with this nonsense? Yikes. What do we reckon? So, the things I'm leaning towards is Ponder, Tamiyo, and Nardu. We can hopefully get a Nihil Spellbomb next turn. I guess we don't get to Malevolent Rumble though if we play out the Saga. Tricky stuff. I think it is the Ponder. We just don't want them finding the thing that goes with the other bits they have because we can't take them off of both of them. So we have to take them off of what they have. But this feels tricky. Right, the Misty Rainforest. This is probably going to be like Hedge Maze or something. They're not playing out the Tamiyo. The fact that we didn't take the Tamiyo is probably quite interesting to them. Okay, Witherbloom Command does give us a little bit of freedom to wiggle here. Are we casting Malevolent Rumble right now? I think we are casting the Malevolent Rumble. So we don't need to care about getting non-basic getting basics here because our opponent's Cephalid Breakfast. Their mana base is 3 colour with a bunch of colourless lands in. So that's not something we have to care about. Alright, let's get some more hatchery tokens. So if they play out the Cephalid Illusionist, we can kill it with the Witherbloom Command. Which is hopefully going to work out well for us. Brainstorm in here? Spell Pierce off the top. Alright, you got it. I would much rather they Spell Pierce that than our Witherbloom Command. So I am okay with that exchange. We can play the Barrowgoyf and start pressuring, or we can play Witherbloom Command and just a Tamiyo. If they flip this immediately, then we can kill it. Alright, they didn't flip it immediately. Witherbloom Command. That doesn't really do what we need it to do here, does it? Okay, I think this is play out Barrowgoyf. We have an answer for Flip Tamiyo. We have an answer for Cephalid Illusionist. We don't have an answer for Nardu. But we have a nice big creature. This can find us things like the Orcish Bowmasters, which can maybe mess with Tamiyo. How are we going to deal with this Nardu? If they find Nardu plus the thing that goes with Nardu, then we probably just lose the game. Cephalid Illusionist. Do they have the Nomads as well? Shuke. That's good enough. We'll scoop it up. Okay. That wasn't great for us, was it? Now, their mana base is quite fragile, so we can mess with that. I like removal spells. Chains is always good against Ponder Brainstorm decks. Toxic Deluge seems pretty good here. The Leyline seem pretty good. We've got a bunch of interesting stuff. The Hogaak isn't so good against the Swords to Plowshares decks. It's much better versus the blue-black decks that don't have clean removal for it. So I don't hate getting rid of the Hogaaks here. Because we have to go through some hoops to get a creature that dies just as easily as whatever. Nihil Spellbomb's good. Pithing Needle's good. Lavaspur Boots good. 7 cuts is a lot. Maybe it's the Rumbles that go. Especially if we're boarding out the Hogaaks. Maybe we're just going to grind our opponent into oblivion and we board out some of this sort of stuff. I guess the Grist isn't that exciting. Problem is if we board out all of our win conditions, we're just left with Urza Saga. But we can really mess with our opponent here. Maybe that's what we have to do. I'm willing to try it, and then if it doesn't work, we can have another think in the game 3. Alright, sign me up. We're going to be playing Thoughtseizes and Smallpoxes until our opponent is sad. And then beat our opponent down with a little bit of Hatchery. We might take a turn off to play the Mephistopheles, and then start Smallpox, and that way we get more guys from our Hatchery. But we're going to have the information from the Smallpox to make the best choice. We can also Smallpox into a Force of Will that we know is coming and just use this as like a Hymn to Torak to take 2 cards, and then the second Smallpox will actually connect if they have a Force of Will in hand. And I have to imagine they're going to keep Force of Will in this matchup. Hatchery, let's go. Prismatic Ending we don't care about. Force of Negation, so this is the 2-card plan that I was talking about. I think if we take the ending, they play the Nomads next turn, and then they Force of Negation our Smallpox. That costs them their Nadu. I think we just take the Nadu though. So I think we're just going to Smallpox on turn 2 here and see if we get the Force of Negation, because they've drawn 1 card. Alright, we're not going to have to Smallpox now because they just played out the Flood Strand instead. That's fine. So now we can play out the Chains, get another counter on our Hatchery, and get that ticking up. So we're playing these out because we'd rather keep our green sources in hand for later on, so we can sacrifice the Swamp and the Hatchery rather than sacrificing a Bayou, because our opponent's not going to mess with our land. So this is going to be Meticulous Archive or Hedge Maze. And then hopefully they play out like 1 guy that doesn't matter that much, and then we just get to Smallpox them. Because the blue cards they would pitch are either going to be cantrips, which they don't care about, or they're going to be the Nadus and Cephalid Illusionists of the world. So I'm willing to take that chance. Our opponent can also just tap out and hit this with a Prismatic Ending, and that's fine. That looks like what's happening. So we could have taken the Prismatic Ending instead of the Nadu early on, but that's a pretty sketchy proposition sometimes. Let's play a Mox Diamond here. Let's go for Hatchery. This is so you can play around a potential days. We're just going to take out one of our opponent's cards from their hand and one of their lands. We're going to get rid of this Verdant Catacombs and save the second Smallpox. What do they pitch for this? A Brainstorm. Okay. I could play this out. That means we'd have to discard whatever we draw. We could also just play this out right now and take out one of our opponent's lands and this Nomads if they're threatening to kill us. Okay, I can live with that. If we were going to play the Smallpox this turn, we might as well play it this turn, if you know what I mean. Alright, let's... Smallpox... Alright, they had Force of Will. So their rips were just blue cards and forces, is what you're telling me. This is going to leave them... Oh wait, no they can't because we know they've got an island in hand, right? So discard this Nomads. We get a bunch of dudes. So they've got Island Force of Will in hand because they showed us a Force of Will by paying 2 life and then realising they didn't have a blue card to pitch. But we still get the notification of their life changing via Magic Online. Nomads. Are we just dead? We could be dead soon. They could just top deck something that kills us. That is pretty terrifying. Alright, they can't do that anymore. Good news. I think we're just going to fail push this now. We know they've got a Force of Will in hand, so this is going to go through. So now they need to find both halves of their combo. Ponder's not a bad way of doing it. So earlier we used our Chains of Mephistopheles kind of as like a duress that also tapped our opponent down for 2 mana, which is fine. Okay, we'll attack. We know they have a Force of Will, so there's at least something we can take with this Thoughtseize, which maybe enables us to do some sneaky stuff later on with one of our scarier spells. Because I don't think they're going to Force of Will this Thoughtseize, because then they would lose 2 cards instead of 1. Okay, they're going to Brainstorm and hide the goodies. So we could die on our next turn. They have a land plus Shuko, Nomads, and Illusionist. We just die. I don't really know how this matchup is supposed to go for us. It feels one way or the other. It's going to be pretty one-sided. They also have like just an I win button. All right, we take the Force of Will. We knew about this already. Let's pass it over. What were the goods they hid? Presumably 1 card they hid, and then they have the Flood Strand to shuffle. Okay, it wasn't a Nadu, because that basically just wins in the game at this point, I think. Obviously, we can draw removal for it and stuff, but it's not ideal. Oh, let's get another Hatchery in. In with the boys. Right, 3 more turns of this to go. We can start cranking some counters on the Hatchery. This is not going to be a matchup that comes down to our life total. Certainly not this particular game. Right, they can crack fetch lands. That doesn't really matter here. Right, Urza Saga is obviously a good one. think I'll make a counter appear on our little hatchery. Witherbloom Command is pretty exciting here. Applying one of our guys. You got it. So I think I'm going to hatchery here. Sorry, I'm going to use the hatchery to Witherbloom Command. The reason for this is we get to drain life, which is going to mess with it. But we might find a Wasteland here, which can shut down our opponent's ability to get Urza Saga constructs going. So if we find a Wasteland or something, like even a Ghost Quarter is pretty good into this Urza Saga. We could also just hit our own hatchery with it and win that way. Okay, I'll take an Urza Saga of our own though and play that one out. So we've got our opponent down to 4 life here. They get to make a guy. The turn after they get Shuko, so they could kill us next turn. I don't think we die this turn because they only got 1 card in hand. Thassa's Oracle from hand. That is an interesting one. If they didn't play this out, they could have killed us next turn if they drew exactly Sephird Illusionist. Because this is going to get them a Shuko. Toxic Deluge. Not really the one we wanted, was it? Alright, we win the game and they want to go to game 3. Okay, I liked how we sideboarded there. That seemed to work out. Yeah, let's just go back in. Okay, this shuts down the Sephird Illusionist combo. This can sweep out some guys. We can prey upon their slightly vulnerable mana base. I think this is fine. We're going to need to draw a little bit of action, but I like having stuff that means I don't die immediately in a matchup where our opponent can just turn to us. If they don't play anything else, we could play out a Wasteland. Oh, I like the Urza Saga here. Let's play the Mox Diamond. If they want to daze this, they can daze this and set themselves back. They didn't want to do that. I'm going to bin off this forest. I'm going to deploy an Urza Saga. We're going to start cranking here. Because we know our opponent can't kill us next turn. So let's play out this Nihil Spellbomb. So no graveyard for you. And then we can play this Lavaspur Boots. And we're going to be able to have some pretty chonky constructs early doors. And hopefully we can ride them to victory. Right, Hedge Maze. So the other option we had there was to play the Wasteland so that they can't fetch a Surveil Land without us sniping it out. I think that's reasonable, but I think this is just much higher power. If we don't pressure a combo deck, they're going to beat us. This also allows us to race towards a Pithing Needle. So we can cover the graveyard, we can cover Nomads, we just have to worry about Shuko, and this can answer the Saga that gets Shuko. Tamiyo. Yep, that's a impressive little creature, isn't it? Orcish Bowmasters, you say? I'm going to play out this Wasteland, because this gives us the option to make a construct or to Bowmaster plus Wasteland, if you think that's relevant. I think I just want to grind some constructs, because these are going to be big enough to challenge the Tamiyo if it flips. Flipping a Tamiyo doesn't seem great into our deck, though, because we have all these Witherbloom commands which can help. It's also, you know, if they flip it when we have the ability to make constructs, that's not great for them. A Ponder. I don't think I fight over the Ponder here. Even though we have this Bowmasters, I don't think that's the way. A Brainstorm, sure. But I don't think Ponder's what I'm about. Because this also kills Nomads and Core, which is, you know, a clutch part of how our opponent's trying to win the game. So let's just grind some friends out. So by playing out the Wasteland, it does mean that we don't get to use it next turn very effectively. Oh, we drew a Wasteland. That's great. So what do we get here? So we get Pithing Needle, name the backside of Tamiyo. I don't care about the backside of Tamiyo that much. We can name Nomads and Core. We can get a Mox Diamond, so we can equip the construct and start beating now, and then have a Wasteland as our little piece. That seems reasonable. Then how are we going to get the Pithing Needle for the guy later on? I guess we don't need to because we can Bowmaster it down. Alright, I'm going to go for the Diamond here. So they could plough this in response. And they do. Right, I will attack for 5 here. That's still a pretty reasonable amount of damage to put on our opponent. And we're going to Wasteland so they can't Tamiyo plus, sorry, not Tamiyo plus, Nadu plus. Alright, they've just blown up both of our guys. That is a touch on the rude side, isn't it? So, because we already have a Wasteland, I don't mind if they have an Urza Saga because we can hit it with a second one. So I think we're just going to get rid of the Hedge Maze so they can't bounce it to a Daze and get another Surveil later on if that's the thing they're really after. Alright, we traded pretty well with our Urza Saga. Opponent's got 3 cards in hand, but obviously they can draw as many as they like because they've got Tamiyo. That's just a thing we have to live with. Eumidian Hatchery. Sure, I will play out the Hatchery. We could just Wasteland them right now, but I want to hold this Wasteland for a Saga, so I'm just going to do that. I'm going to crack a Clue here. We're going to get a little bit of extra Bowmaster value. No point picking a Tamiyo. So we're going to have a 2-2, which is at least something that can attack into Tamiyo. especially when we put the boots on it, it becomes a 3-2. So we can actually equalize the Tamiyo's thing until we find a way of dealing with it. Again, I'm not going to... I could take them off of green here, or I could hold this for an Urza's Saga. I think we have to hold this for Saga. If they play a Nadu, we can just sweep the board with the Toxic Deluge. We've got plenty of life to work with. There is a Plains. They didn't play Nomad and Nadu. I guess they could play it in the second main phase, but don't do that, opponent. That's very rude. Hit their Savannah right now while they're in combat in case we worried about them doing that second main. But because the Wasteland's face up, our opponent is not going to wait till second main for that. They're just going to slam it straight away when they know it's just good and they get to win the game. All right. Let's equip the boots to this guy. Let's do some attacking. If they crack a clue here, right, they're going to plow the Bowmasters. They're going to crack a clue. They're not going to crack the clue. Sure. Then we'll just chill out for a minute. Now they're just going to keep leveraging clues here. Alright, so then we can go again with the Bowmaster. Punishing them for the clues. Our Orc army is getting pretty beefy. Like, we got a 5-4 here. Our opponent has enough mana. I don't think we're cutting them off of Nadu Nomad's mana. Because they're drawing so many cards, the chances are they have another land in there. And I just want this to hit an Urza Saga. If we draw another Wasteland, maybe we take out the green source. But now we have a creature that's also bigger than Nadu, which is pretty cool. Thassa's Oracle. That's not the one you want to be playing, is it, opponent? They do have 3 devotions. This is going to see a reasonable amount of cards. There is the Urza Saga. This we will tag immediately before it learns to make mana, so they can't follow up with an additional play here. That's what we've been holding this Wasteland for, and we are paid off for our play. Still not firing off the Spellbomb. We're at least punishing these clues as well. I think we are doing okay. I feel like we're ahead, but the Seven Breakfast deck does just have buttons that say, I win the game and you lose. That's not really ideal for us. Alright, I guess we are attacking with our 5-4 guy. How much damage are you taking there, opponent? We're going to keep this swamp in hand so that we have something to discard to a Smallpox if we end up in that sort of situation. We will definitely be putting counters on the Eumidian Hatchery though, because this is going to be some good gas for us. Alright, yep. So, I mention this every time it happens on the channel, but this is the reason I like Bowmasters as a design compared to things like Hull Breacher. Our opponent has the option of cracking a clue token there, right? They have play, they have a choice to make, they have decisions, that's cool. Hull Breacher, you don't get decisions. Like, they can say, is it worth giving my opponent +1/+1 on this Orc army and pinging us in order for us to be able to dig some cards? And, you know, that's an interesting play pattern to me. Narset and Hull Breacher not so much, because they don't have the agency. I don't particularly like when people just get somebody with a Bowmaster. It doesn't happen very often because most people play around it. But that's not particularly fun. But just the texture of a game with cantrips when your opponent has a Bowmaster, I find kind of interesting. Certainly pretty far down my list of egregious things in the format right now. We've got a large boy, but they've got the ability to chuck an Oracle under the bus. They could draw another card and flip the Tamiyo and then work towards getting back a Swords to Plowshares. That could be an interesting line for our opponent takes. 3 mana. Teferi Time Raveler. Okay. So this is pretty good at bouncing this Orc. So they can crack this Misty Rainforest to pay for the ward. Alright, they're just plussing it. Entirely sure what that says about how this game's going to go. I will add a counter to our Eumidian Hatchery. Alright, we're going to go to attacks. Then we have to attack our opponent here, force something under the bus. It's the guy they don't care about, sure. I will play out one of these lands, and I'll pass. So they can't just win with our Nihil Spellbomb in play. If they try to bounce our Nihil Spellbomb, we can crack it and get rid of the Thassa's Oracle, which then forces them to Memory's Journey it. Maybe we're supposed to crack the Spellbomb right now, so they can't do that. That's an interesting thought, isn't it? Let's see what they do with this Surveil first. There's also triple plows, which are things that I don't really want their Tamiyo to be able to grab. I think we're going to bomb with the Spellbomb here. Maybe we should have thought about this earlier. I don't believe they have a second Oracle. Yeah, would have been pretty good to have that Bowmasters this turn if we'd have done this earlier. But we needed to wait for our opponent to tap out so they didn't have access to the Memory's Journey. But I don't think they can win with Thassa's Oracle now because it's gone out of their deck. There's no way they have 2 Thassa's Oracle. You don't need it when you've got Nadu combo. Veil of Summer. we don't get to Orcish Bowmasters stuff here, which is why they're doing it. And protection from Orcish Bowmasters. This is going to allow them to do all their brainstorming and stuff. So we can target our own Orc army here, and it grows as we ping it. And we don't have to pay for the ward because it specifically states opponents with ward. So they're going to flip their Tamiyo. But that's not too scary for us. They're going to boop out our Orc army token. But we have 1 damage, 2 damage, 3, 4 damage. Yeah, so we have enough to kill our opponent if they don't have anything else here. Actually, no, the minus from a Tamiyo is horrible for us. So when this bounces, we draw a card. This pings us. We make a guy. We put our opponent to 3. This comes in for 2. So we're 1 away. Maybe we just draw another Bowmasters, I guess. Another Tamiyo. That's irritating, isn't it? Let's add a counter on this hatchery. This could be our win condition. Leyline of the Void. Not really the one here. So we stick this on the Bowmaster token. This is the only thing that's going to have power and toughness here. We attack with this for 2. If we ping this, if we ping them, this becomes a 3. So we have to ping the Tamiyo if we want the Tamiyo to die or for us to deal damages this turn. Okay. So this pings the Tamiyo. They can't Verdant Catacombs, they have no green mana up. This will grow our guy to a 3-2. So if they block with the Tamiyo, they lose the Tamiyo. So we can take out the guy. I think we just attack the player here, right? I think we go face and make any sort of clue cracking a problem. Because they can chump block here and maintain 4 life. Or they can just take it, go to 2, have brainstorm stuff being a little bit sketchy to deal with. Alright, they're going for the chump here. I don't think we need this Leyline right now. Right, so now they get to start making constructs with 2 clues hanging around. So these guys are going to be pretty large. Drawing cards is going to be tricky for our opponents while we have the Bowmasters. But what's going to happen is they're going to bounce the Bowmasters with the Teferi when the time comes. And then they're just going to crack the Tamiyo and draw enough cards to kill us. They finally found a Nadu. They have finally found a Nadu. Alright, I think we are in a lot of trouble here, team. That's not the one, is it? Leyline of the Void. It's not very good. They might cast a spell in response so it's in the graveyard, because this doesn't exile stuff in the graveyard, it just stops stuff going to the graveyard. No point attacking into their Nadu. They have Shuko now, so they're going to be drawing an extra card every turn. I think our opponent's done enough here. We got pretty close. Yep. We don't really get to do anything here because of Teferi. So our opponent just gets to draw all the cards right now. So they're going to get Shuko. Can we beat this many cards? Because they're not actually cards. I don't think we can beat this. I think we're just going to scoop it up. The Shuko is just too much for us to get through. Because they're going to be able to draw 2, 4, 6, 8 cards this turn. Alright. So we finished with a 2-3. Not a great record, but we did jam into this mono-red matchup, which looks horrible twice. So that's kind of a bit of a wash. And the last game was kind of close, actually. We definitely could have gone either way, but unfortunately we couldn't quite get over the hump. So let's talk about this deck. So obviously Jacob Murray had a pretty good run at Eternal Weekend and managed to top 8, which is a great achievement. This Pox deck obviously is going to have some pros and cons with every Pox deck. Sometimes just casting Smallpox on turn 2 immediately wins the game, and I definitely watched on the coverage and saw that happen, and it was pretty sweet. But Pox can sometimes struggle with engines, because we're trying to play cards that strip resources out of the game. But if your opponent has a way of just gaining a bunch of resources, it can be really annoying. Like if they have an uncontested life from Loam, or like a Tamiyo drawing them a million cards, or just other Planeswalkers can be a real problem for our deck to deal with. And we don't have the most amount of removal. Now, Witherbloom Command is obviously a really big caveat here to try and deal with Tamiyo. And we certainly pointed at a Tamiyo a few times and it was good, and I wouldn't have minded drawing it in some of the other situations we're in where we didn't find it. I think the amount of removal in this deck is a little bit light for my personal preferences on Pox. But what I will say is the ability to actually clock the game, using things like Malevolent Rumble and the Witherbloom Command to power out your Barrowgoyf and your Hogaak, that is a really interesting dimension that the deck has that some Pox lists don't. And you're giving up things like Hymn to Turak and more removal in order to play that. and saying, I'm going to be the problem, we're going to rely on our Smallpox and stuff. We're not going to run Lilianas and things like that, which is another common removals engine that you see. So that's definitely an interesting one. I think what I really wanted a lot of the time was a third life from Loam. It just felt like we were in situations where if we just grind the game out and then we start Loaming, then it's absolutely lights out for our opponent. But we couldn't necessarily find the Loam because we only got 2. Now, we don't want to be too all in on the graveyard, but I think, you know, Life from the Loam is a powerful engine. We all know this. I wouldn't mind having access to another Loam here. We could trim like a Rumble for a Loam or a Witherbloom for a Loam. I think the Witherbloom is better than the Rumble because it answers a problem that we have, which is, you know, sometimes our opponent's going to have Artifact and Charms we want to deal with. Sometimes they're going to have a backside of Tammy we want to deal with. And the fact that this is removal sometimes means I like this more than the Rumble. The Rumble is obviously good because it can dig for some interesting things. You know, it can find us a threat. It can mill over stuff as well. So it's pretty useful. All in all, I quite enjoy playing this deck. I do like playing Pox. I think Loam Pox is the best way to play Pox. It does feel very strong, and obviously Eumidian Hatchery is a stone cold banger. Maybe we could have been more aggressive with some of our mulligans. I just really hate mulliganing too heavily with Pox because this is symmetrical. So if you strip too many of your resources out so you can't play the game, it's a problem, especially when we've only got 2 life from Loam. So it becomes harder to recoup the stuff we've lost. We are just trying to sort of suck the life out of the room. But yeah, pretty sweet deck. Awesome run. Once again, congratulations to Jacob for sweet run. And I hope you all enjoyed watching me pox some people in the heart. Alright, please remember to like and subscribe, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.